Hi, everybody. Today's Tuesday, March 31st, 2026, and our dear friend, our brother, Colonel Wilkerson, is here with us. Welcome back, Colonel.
Good to be with you. I had someone this morning I've never heard from before email me and said, "If the judge kissed your head, I'd like to kiss your head." I didn't know how to respond.
Yeah. Larry, let me start with something that it's related to the war that is happening right now between Iran and the United States. Something that has happened before the war happening. It was the case of Charlie Kirk. We various times you and I talk about it. What has happened? What were what was the reality of the shooting? The evidence, everything. But today we've learned from Daily Mail is mentioning that the bullet used to kill Charlie Kirk didn't match the rifle that they say used by Tyler Robinson. And how is that? It's so amazing to see Cash Patel going various times. He was asked if he's sure that the Tyler Robinson did that. He said that they're sure. There are a lot of evidence. How can what do you make of what's going on with the case of Charlie Kirk? We know Charlie Kirk was against the war with Iran. He did everything before this disaster, that so-called Iran, the war on Iran happening. And he's not living on this planet right now. He's passed away. What do you make of what's going on?
As you know from talking with Larry Johnson and probably others too, and I know from talking with both Larry and Ray McGovern and others, we never thought that this was properly presented. That is to say, we didn't think the shooter was the shooter, and we didn't think the rifle was the rifle, and we didn't think the bullet was the bullet. I don't know if these allegations here are bringing this to the surface again and bringing it up legitimately and accurately or not. But I won't change my view, having heard the experts' views and knowing something about rifles myself. There's no way this guy shot Charlie Kirk. And he certainly didn't shoot him from the position they're asserting he shot him from. And the rifle, in all of its configurations, if you will, is impossible to have been the launcher of the round that killed him. So the question is, what are they hiding? And who are they hiding?
Yeah. And do you think that this administration would reveal what really happened? Because so far they didn't inform the public opinion, they didn't inform the media what has happened behind the scene, what were the evidence through which Cash Patel, for example, said this guy killed Charlie Kirk, because the evidence is all against him. What were the evidence? What were those documents against him? So far, we haven't seen. Did you see any sort of document against this guy?
No, I have seen nothing that proves to me that he was the shooter. And I think we're looking at a similar set of circumstances to those that existed around a much more, if you will, important killing, John Kennedy in Dallas in 1963. And that took a long time, and a commission, badly flawed that it was, ultimately flawed in reality, and packed as it was. But it took a lot of emphasis and a lot of people to finally determine the nature of the lie that was going to be told the nation. I should say lies, plural, that were going to be told the nation. And the people who would participate in that lying, from Earl Warren, the former Chief Justice, who was the head of the commission, all the way down to individuals whose stories, not with their acknowledgement or their complicity, were reversed, such as the team that did the first autopsy in Dallas. All to say that that was a very, very closely scrutinized process, not closely enough, as it turns out, but it was, and it was public, and it was done in front of the Klieg lights, if you will, even though it was a falsification of the evidence. they went to some effort to do that. They've done nothing with this. Now you could say, well, Charlie Kirk wasn't a very important character. I'd say he was pretty important. I think that some of the things he said were absolutely vile. Didn't like him at all. But when he began to shift, it was clear that he got a lot of people irritated, a lot of people very, very mad, particularly Jewish American billionaires. He got them particularly mad. So, the next conclusion is, as you went and figured out who probably shot John Kennedy, CIA, military, disgruntled Cubans, mafia, you take your pick. It probably was a conspiracy amongst them all. But this is a little different because it's not that public and it's not that scrutinized. It's simply Kash Patel and maybe some other people at the FBI. I don't even know how many people are even in on the investigation. So why is it taking so long to produce evidence that people could believe? Are we going to have a commission? Are we going to have to get Kash Patel out and beat the truth out of him? Does Kash Patel even know? Does he have a clue? I suspect he has the vaguest idea of who killed Charlie Kirk, not the vaguest idea. Now they don't want to tell Trump that either. They don't want to tell the American people that because it expresses their incompetence. But I don't think they have a clue who killed him. But I have some clues as to who I think might have killed him. That's for sure. And it ain't that guy with that rifle.
Yeah.
It's Epstein in a small capsule, right? It doesn't impact Trump. It doesn't impact any of the Congress. It doesn't impact any of these important people, posh people. It's just Charlie Kirk. If it were more people, they'd probably be hiding it a little more adroitly and they'd probably be manufacturing more evidence and so forth. But since it's just Charlie Kirk out there, who cares? So why go speedily? Why go accurately? Why even try to do anything other than railroad someone? But it's going to be increasingly difficult to railroad this guy because there's so many people out there like Larry Johnson and others who know it's a lie.
And many things has happened since the assassination of Charlie Kirk, which was so strange. One of them was the way that Donald Trump was asked, if you remember, in White House, he was asked, how do you feel about Charlie Kirk? He said, about the assassination of Charlie. He said, yeah, it's good. Look at that building. This beautiful building that we are,
Well, look at the way he's treating. Have you heard what he says?
Changed the whole tone, yeah.
About the head of the National Counterterrorism Center, the number 2 guy, I guess, in the hierarchy at the ODNI. He didn't know him. I didn't know him. I gave him a job. Well, I was, I thought he was a pretty good guy. I gave him a job, but he's left now. I think he's wrong. Well, you listen to him talk. Listen to the guy talk and tell about the telephone conversation he had with Donald Trump, telling him he was going to leave, the conversation Trump had with him in response to that. Totally opposite. Trump wants you to think that he didn't even know this guy, and it's just inconsequential that he left. And he's wrong about the Iran war. He should have left if you felt that way, And this guy's saying, well, I had a long telephone call with the president, and I talked to him about what I was feeling and everything. And we went back and forth for a while. Who's telling the truth? I put my money on the other guy, not the president, because he's a proverbial liar.
Today, Larry, we had the briefing of Pete Hegseth together with General Kane, and both of them have mentioned.
Wait a minute, just 1 second. I have a new analogy for you.
Yeah.
We've been searching at Eisenhower Media Network for, analogies, historical analogies. Is it Hitler? Is it Caligula? Is it Nero? All these guys. No, those are all false. The analogy is clear. You may not remember this. I'll test you. I see a few gray hairs. Maybe you do remember. This is the Sith Lord and Darth Vader. Trump is the Sith Lord and Hegseth is Darth Vader. He's Darth Vader without the redeeming feature of once being a Jedi Knight, which you may recall if you do know the movie. you know that he turns out to be halfway decent in the end because the Jedi Knight in him comes out. But that Pete Hegseth does not have that redemptive feature. He is Darth Vader, and Trump is the Sith Lord, and we're the Empire. And all the rest of the people in the world are Han Solo's rebel force, and they're going to attack and kill us. That's the analogy. Straight out of Hollywood.
Yeah. I'm
serious. And these kids look at me like they don't even know who Han Solo is, or who Darth Vader is, or who the Sith Lord is. Yeah. What are you talking about? Star Wars. What's Star Wars? Are you talking about Game of Thrones?
Yeah, these are Larry. One of the arguments on the part of Pete Hegseth and General Kane was that they have hit the Iranian production, military industrial complex, the way that they cannot produce more weapons, more missiles, more drones. That's why the number of missiles and drones are drastically reducing as time goes by. Here is, the information, the graph of IRGC. It shows from March 11th to March 29th. The number of the blue line, it shows the number of drones, and the red line shows the number of missiles. Even the number of missiles, you see, the day before yesterday, it was 40. And, it's all, somehow the highest number of missiles being shot, the day before yesterday. And the number of drones are going up and down, but they're, pursuing the same sort of trajectory. Do they really have any sort of information? Or they're trying to manipulate without providing, robust numbers to the public opinion? Because when you say something, you have to put something out to show it. But they're making some sort of claim that doesn't get to the reality of what's going on.
This administration has given a new name to lying and deceit. There's no question about it. Led by the chief man. He's the biggest liar of them all. I got a list, a partial list at least, and I think it's pretty valid, of what I would call second tier targeting. The first tier they've already struck, and rather devastatingly. Extraordinary accuracy, extraordinary devastation. Bahrain, for example, has no refinement capacity left. That was the oldest, largest refinery in the Gulf. It's destroyed now. I was talking to some people yesterday about what that means. Do they have to go in and snake out the actual piping and everything now? And they were saying, yeah, they got to start from ground zero and go all over again for construction. A huge fortune it's going to cost them if they want to do it. So they were devastatingly accurate, and they were devastating in terms of their array of targets and what I call the first tier of extracurricular missiles. In other words, not at Iran, not at Israel. Missiles not shot at Israel, shot at Erbil, shot at Prince Sultan, shot at other targets. So much effectiveness in Iran or in Iraq, for example, that we have gone down to emergency personnel only at our embassy in Baghdad. So I got to look at this second tier, which I think is probably pretty accurate. This is what they're going to hit if the states that have U.S. facilities there continue to host those facilities, and those facilities continue to be used in attacks on Iran. A reasonable proposition. If they hit this second tier of targets with the devastation that they hit the first tier of targets, we go into global recession for sure, and potentially global depression, because it is going to wreck the world economy. Not just Southwest Asia, but the world's economy. The one country that might be somewhat insulated from this and actually benefit from it is, of course, Russia, because of the price of oil and such. But even they are going to be impacted by other shortages, and the rest of the world, including the Western Hemisphere, big time. are going to be majorly impacted by the shortages, as are some of our allies in the East, like Taiwan, who are going to be incapable of working through this without some real help because of helium shortage, because of other material for chip making shortages, and ultimately because of no oil. So, I mean, if Iran is saying, okay, China, your ships can get through, but Taiwan, your ships can't, that's it. And then if the Houthis are really going to try to seal off the Red Sea again, and it wouldn't take much effort there to do that, because we saw the first time around, all it takes is really frightening the insurers and frightening the ship companies. We're in for trouble. We're in for big trouble. And I don't see any recognition of this looming disaster on the part of any of the administration. Not a single one of them seems to be seized with what they're doing to the world economy. Now, I may be wrong, and they may back up any moment here and stop what they're doing, maybe even call off this ground operation, whatever it's going to be. But I don't see any sign of that. And therefore, I don't see any sign that they recognize the perilous ground upon which they're walking. And this idea of B-52s going in and carpet bombing, well, what do you think is going to happen when the first B-52 hurtles to earth in flame? This is not good, Nima. It's not good for anybody. It's not good for Iran to keep on being pummeled like this, but it's not good for the world. I won't even count the empire led by Donald Trump. But it's not good for the world what we're going to do. We're going to plunge it into economic distress that might be years in the mending.
Larry,
I don't blame the Iranians. If they execute that second tier of targets, I don't blame them. I don't blame them. You know, they had shot Erbil 2 or 3 times before. They had sent drones, they'd sent a missile or 2 or whatever, just to let the Israelis and the Brits know that they knew they were there. Underground intelligence facility. Well, this time they gave them more than just a warning that they were there. They knew they were there. I mean, they wiped them out virtually. Do that to everything else that they have on this second list of targets. It's Saudi Arabia, it's the pipelines, it's the Ras Tanura type facilities that deliver 8 to 12 billion barrels a day of oil. I mean, don't even talk about getting ships out of the Strait of Hormuz. You won't have any oil to put on the ships, nor any infrastructure to generate any more oil. We're talking a real disaster if we move forward with this and the Iranians are forced to execute that second set of targets.
We know that Friday is holiday, and you have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If they want to invade Iran, want to capture one of these islands in the Persian Gulf close to the Strait of Hormuz, it's going to be on this Friday. It's because
Good Friday.
Yeah.
Pete Hicks says Good Friday.
Yeah.
Jedi Knight, Darth Vader. I'm going to attack them on my best holiday. God's going to help me.
He just got back from CENTCOM and he said that they say the only thing that they're asking us to do, give us more bombs. He said that during this briefing. But Larry, here is what Eric Prince, the founder of Blackwater, one of the contractors, said about invading Iran.
The Wagner Group equivalent in the empire.
The Karg Island is going to be mighty thin. Have to cycle, and that's assuming you don't have any losses from maintenance. So yeah, your initial assault into Karg Island is going to be mighty thin because those aircraft have to cycle, and that's assuming you don't have any losses from maintenance or from missiles. Do you do a mass drop of the 82nd on the Karg Island? Again, that's pretty sporty, and an airborne invasion in a place that has thousands and thousands of missiles. Not to mention, the Iranians have been learning. They've certainly been paying attention to modern drone warfare and have certainly implemented FPVs down to the squad level. I mean, you see videos of the Israelis in southern Lebanon losing tanks, losing armored personnel carriers to the same FPVs that the Russians have been using with great effect in Ukraine. So it is, again, a fight against Iran. They're not Arabs. They're Aryans. They are a highly intelligent, highly skilled warfighters, and it would not be the pushover by comparison that you see of the Iraqi army that worked.
Yeah.
The truth hurts. The truth hurts. He's right. He's right. I don't know that. I don't know that they're planning that, because I have to give, I think I told you what I told Colin Powell one time when I walked in his office and I was in a little bit of a peak, and I said, let's never make an Air Force officer chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff again. And he knew what I was saying, because they don't know anything about ground warfare. They know nothing about ground warfare. And so Kane, of course, is that. But he's got to have some Army generals who aren't just chicken shit cowards. They've got to be telling him, airborne operation on Carg Island? Are you kidding me? You want to get 3,000 people killed before they even hit the ground? You want to get them plummeting to the earth with their parachutes burning? I'm sorry. This isn't going to work. And as he was suggesting there with the Osprey, you know what the Marines call the Osprey? The flying death trap. One Marine said to me, would I be within my rights, Colonel, if I were embarking on an Osprey for a training mission and I refused to get on it? I didn't know how to answer him. Now, I have to say that it doesn't have any worse record than some of the couple of 3 aircraft in the past 50 years have developed in terms of killing people, bad records, in other words. But it does have a consistency and a particular problem with the rotation from forward flight to hovering flight and back again with that clutch that I think everybody knows about. And so I think every Marine who gets on an Osprey takes a moment and says to Jesus or whatever, Muhammad, whatever, please let me live through this flight. This is not an aircraft that I'd want to go to combat in like this, where it's so crucial that everything be perfectly timed, everything be exactly the right altitude, the right airspeed, the exact right landing profile, and so forth, because you are going to be interdicted majorly, if by nothing else than drones, but certainly probably by some pretty powerful missiles too. So you're asking, Trump is asking to kill a lot of Americans for no reason whatsoever. As one Air Force sergeant said to me recently in an email, why are we doing this, Colonel? They present no threat to us. So why are we doing this? That question is probably making its way through a lot of the ranks too. In addition to the religious business and everything, there are probably a lot of people who are just sitting there asking themselves, why are we doing this? Not the pilots who are dropping the bombs and everything. That's one thing that I don't like about Air Force officers being chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. They don't understand the ground. They only understand the technology that releases the bomb and the pictures and the happy video that show them the bomb hitting. They don't understand what's happening after the bomb hits. They don't understand ground warfare. They don't understand what it is to be under that bomb. And that's bad. That's bad. Look at the IDF Air Force, bloodthirstiest people on the face of the earth. Look at what they're doing in Lebanon. Bombing hotels, bombing restaurants, bombing dry cleaners, bombing old women, bombing old men, bombing babies in their carriages. That's what the IDF is good at. That's what they do. That's what air forces do. Bloodthirsty air forces. Soldiers know better. Marines know better. And this is terrible to hurl them into this conflict. It's just terrible. And I feel for all of them. Yeah. Not to mention the Iranians under the bombs. I mean, did you hear Arachi in front of the UN emergency panel on Manab School? He told it like it was. He said, we are evil. We are evil. We torpedoed diplomacy not once, but twice. He used that English word, torpedo. We torpedoed diplomacy twice. In the middle of diplomacy, we bomb people. Palestine started it all, he said. Palestine is the issue. It started it all. And he's right. And Bibi's still in there, and Naftali Bennett is angry with Bibi because he's not killing the Palestinians fast enough.
Yeah. Larry, but the reality is that Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth and many other people around Donald Trump are making money out of these wars.
Yes.
You know, Financial Times reported that Pete Hegseth's broker looked to buy defense fund before the attack on Iran. These guys are making a lot of money.
Yeah. Look at Mark Wayne Mullen. Mark Wayne Mullen didn't wait to be a senator to make $1 million plus. He made it as he waltzed into the Congress. He was already making money because he was already plugged into the Pelosi, the insider trading. I mean, you sometimes have a hard time defending America anymore. And then that report that's coming out, have you heard about the report that has been very carefully put together by, I guess, Brown University and some others? Since 2000, we have killed 38 million people with our sanctions. 38 million people, wow. Half of whom are children, women. 38 million people. Add into that Libya, Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia. I'd bet our toll is over Joseph Stalin's, over Mao Zedong's, and probably over Hitler's in terms of people the empire has killed. This is unconscionable. And Arachi was absolutely right in his damnation of this empire. I don't care what anybody thinks about Iran. You can think it's the most evil Islamic theocracy on the face of the earth. It does not hold a candle to the American empire.
Actually, Pete Hegseth was bragging today that how precise are the attacks on Iran, and we are hitting, strategic points in strategic locations in Iran. But the reality is, Larry, that they're attacking pharmaceutical companies, mostly producing, medicine for
Arachi listed it
for the people. Yeah,
he listed it. Same thing they're doing in Cuba. I saw the what's happened to Cuba yesterday in aggregate. It's horrible. One of the best healthcare systems on the face of the earth. I know. I toured their hospitals. I toured their Hermanos Brigada. I toured their what John Bolton called a chemical facility. It was a bio-level 3 facility that actually made really good medicines. They wiped out Japanese encephalitis completely, wiped it out on the island. They did it all by themselves. Maybe they were helped a little by the Brazilians, but mostly they did it by themselves. They had
Larry, we have a lot of Cuban, doctors here in Brazil. They're amazing. They're amazing.
And they're just broken now. They're broken. Now, this Russian tanker may give them a little bit of life. I hope so, because it's got a lot of energy on it, if you will, in terms of they were doing things like taking babies off respirators because they had to conserve the power, and then hoping that when the power came back for an hour or two, the baby would not be dead.
Larry, when it comes to the situation in Israel, we have a new report. The guy who's in Israel, the Fox News, reporting for Fox News, he was reporting how the situation is getting worse as time goes by with this war. And here is what he reported.
Get from the Israeli people that we talk to is to finish the job. They don't want to have to deal with this. They don't want to have their children raised in bomb shelters. On Wednesday, tomorrow, the Israeli people will mark the first night of Passover, and many of them will be having their Passover seders in bomb shelters. And it's just a reality that the Israeli people are tired of. They want these threats to be reduced against their country, and they'd like to live in peace and stability.
It's such a good point, Trey, because, there's divided government in Israel. You got a prime minister of one side and you got a president of another side. But the one thing they agree on is the threat that Iran poses to their country. And I think that tells us.
Yeah.
They're missing the point, though. They're missing the point. Those Israelis want Netanyahu to wipe out the Palestinians and wipe out the Iranians. That's the solution they want. They don't understand that that solution is impossible to achieve and that they're the ones going to be wiped out. That's the truth of it.
And they're not going to be part of the operation if the United States decides to go underground on one of these islands and some of these islands.
No, you won't find the Israelis being anywhere near that. They know better.
And they're just getting a lot of significant casualties on the border with Lebanon.
The armored forces in Lebanon, I'm seeing pictures that I never thought I would see about the IDF vaunted armored corps. Moshe Dayan's rolling over in his grave. These people are unlimbering their tanks and running because their column, they're very smart, the Hezbollah fighter. They eliminate the lead tank, eliminate the rear tank, then they take one or two out in the center. Then the rest are just sitting ducks because they're not even maintaining tactical distance in their columns because they're so used to not having to. So they're just moving in as fast as they can, bumper to bumper almost. That's extremely stupid, but it's extremely stupid, especially under this kind of warfare, because they're dying. I saw the Haaretz this morning, 5 more dead from the armored corps in Lebanon. And they're not reporting on all the casualties. I mean, there's a tight restriction on casualty reporting. Like I think I told you earlier, the official list in the hospitals was 5,817, I think. And then Netanyahu came out and said, yeah, but all but 137 of them had been released back to the bomb shelter or whatever. Yeah, right. How were they released back? Minus a hand, minus a foot, minus an arm? I mean, don't tell me that you have 5,000 plus, almost 6,000 in your hospitals, and only 137 are there now, and all the rest of them were just, a Band-Aid.
Larry, when it comes to the policy in Israel, do you think that is it matter who's the prime minister of Israel anymore? Or do you think that, because all of them, you see,
I don't think there's a relief on the horizon. Labor's been killed. I'm not even sure what labor is anymore. Yitzhak Rabin's, I think, assassination just sort of set them back so far they couldn't see the light anymore. So there's no leavening force in Israel, which is another reason why it's not a democracy. It's a single party state. It's Likud. It's Likud and the allies it has that are even further to the right than Likud. And I understand yesterday they were out there beating with bullwhips or whatever the Orthodox that were refusing to go into the lines, and refusing to serve. This is not creating a very healthy situation either, that they're having to pound these people even to get them to serve. What kind of soldiers are they going to make? Are they just going to feed them into the caves and the tunnels or whatever and let them die? I'm sure some of them probably would like to do that with them, getting a free ride, not serving at all because their religious beliefs. Yeah. Israel is in turmoil. I think that's a light way of saying it. They're in turmoil. They've never been this hard pressed before. It certainly is not a safe haven for Jews anymore. It is anything but a safe haven. Living in bomb shelters 24/7, eating in bomb shelters, celebrating in bomb shelters. You come out of the bomb shelter, you have a real good chance of being severely wounded or dying. You're seeing everything when you do come out, you're seeing everything around you aflame or destroyed, including now lots of civilian properties and buildings and businesses. You've had your people another 400,000 called up on top of the 300,000 called up before. Who's running your economy? No one. No one. Your economy is not running. This is a disaster for Israel, and no one is willing to admit it and correct it and move in some other direction.
No, they're talking about southern part of Lebanon. They don't want to leave Lebanon. They
Yep.
want to, to grab the land.
And let's slide off and get Syria too. We want that Syrian guy dead too. We don't want that guy in charge of the government in Damascus anymore. Let's make it chaos. We're going to make Iran chaos. We'll make it chaos, and then we'll just wade into the chaos with settlers. And guess what? Have you looked at the West Bank lately? They even have IDF units now that are turning against the Palestinians remaining in the West Bank and helping the settlers to finish them off. At least that prima facie didn't happen. Maybe an individual IDF soldier might help an individual settler to kill a Palestinian or something, or run him off his land. But now you've got whole units helping them to destroy what's left of Palestinian life in the West Bank. Bloodthirsty people who are getting their comeuppance.
But with the case of the war against Iran, the situation is not going the way they want it to be, because you see the United States is putting pressure on Poland to send their Patriot systems to Israel.
Yeah.
When you bring all of these systems, after South Korea, right now Poland, they rejected, by the way.
Yeah.
But it shows the reality of what is happening in Israel.
Good for the Poles. I saw the list the other day. You probably did too, of the 4 days left, 6 days left, 7 days left, 9 days left, and so forth. It's a pretty gruesome looking list for the most critical munitions that are needed right now. That's the reason you're not seeing much going up now. The report out of Haaretz this morning was that the government is saying that it's husbanding its missiles. Well, that means two things. One, you recognize you're running out, and two, they aren't, because otherwise you wouldn't be husbanding them, right? You put this out, they'll be out soon. They don't have that many missiles left. Well, why are you holding so many of your missiles and not firing them when missiles are coming in if you think they're running out? Well, you're holding them because their supplies are still pretty robust. And this second tier of targets, their supplies have to be fairly robust in order to execute that tier. So if it's out there to be executed, and it seemed like, who's the speaker of the Majlis? Kalibov. Yeah. He made some statements yesterday that were very indicative of they're right at launching that second tier. So they must have plenty of missiles.
Yeah. They know the situation in Israel. They literally, a lot of intelligence they have, coming out of Israel. Before the war started, we all thought, I was thinking that Mossad would have a lot of leverage in Iran, but as time goes by, it seems that they don't have anything in Iran.
I think they got them pretty badly after that last, remember Pence talking about the guy in the street, the Iranian protesting, and the Mossad agent was right behind him, pushing him. I think they found those Mossad agents and those CIA agents, and they got rid of them. And they found the Armenians and Azerbaijanis and Kurds and others who were helping, and they got rid of them too. So they did some major damage to Israel. And I was told, I don't know this for sure, the source was a little questionable, but that there were quite a few that Israel put back in to try and reconstitute that line of intelligence, if you will. And they rounded them up forthwith, got them too.
Yeah. I think that's right, because from what I've seen, what I've heard so far is that they're just blind. They don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
That's why they're hitting universities, they're hitting hospitals, schools. And this is the reason. If you have strategic locations, you go and hit the strategic locations. You don't hit this.
All war crimes. All war crimes. Every time you hit something like that, it's a war crime. Of course, as Arachi said, no one cares anymore, apparently. Starting with he always takes it back to the Palestinians. Starting with the Palestinians, no one cares anymore. All the rules are gone.
Netanyahu wants Larry to make a new sort of alliance with Arab states to go against the axis of resistance. But when it comes to the new alliance, some sort of new coalition against the axis of resistance, you have to have the army. Israelis or not. And who's going to help them in Saudi Arabia, in Kuwait, I would say, in UAE? Most of the people, the public opinion is against Israel. It doesn't matter if the elites or the guy who's running, the king, or the whatever they have in their countries, the guy is not that much popular.
What a way to set up the fall of your own monarchy. I mean, no kidding. What a way to give Arab Spring a new life and a vicious life, because I wonder about Bahrain in particular, because it's just been blasted. And the fact that the people haven't taken advantage of that and just thrown the monarchy out on its fanny is a little bit remarkable. I've got to think that maybe some of the people were blasted too, that they really are kind of shivering in shock right now. People have told me that I wouldn't even believe Bahrain if I went there. It's just so utterly destroyed.
Yeah. Larry, what do you make of Arab states trying to? We've learned from Associated Press. They reported that Saudi Arabia, together with the UAE, they trying to force Donald Trump to stay in the fight, to continue this war. On one hand, if you want to continue this conflict, this war, you have to have, the weapons, the bombs, the missiles, everything. This is on one hand. On the other hand, it seems that they're ready to prepare to provide the United States to give money to Donald Trump and his administration. But the money is not going to make the bombs.
No,
because it's a huge, the process is getting too much time consuming. And
I think they're very frightened. They're frightened of their own people, of course. They're always frightened of that, and they always keep a weather eye to the streets. But they're also frightened that if the United States pulls out and there is no rescuer for them, and there is a reason, if you think about it, for neither China or Russia wanting to assume that position. So who else is there? There is no rescuer for them. And then their people smell that, and their time is over. Now, the chaos that might occur in the wake of that might be worse than what was before, but I think I'd prefer to risk that to continuing those horrible monarchies further into the future. And the reason those monarchies have been able to continue is us. We've propped them up. We've given them the weapons to destroy their own people if they need to, and the Praetorian Guards to do it. That's what the Saudi National Guard is really for. It's a Praetorian Guard for the royals. So, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. But in this case, as someone who likes to think of himself as at least having some humanitarian instincts, I'd like to see these people get a little freedom. And so overthrow these people, overthrow them. That's anathema to my government, or it was to my government. I don't know. Compare the talk that Donald Trump gave. You remember the talk that he gave there in Riyadh? I think it was Riyadh. And he had all the potentates out there, and he was telling them how he understood their circumstances and appreciated their circumstances, and he was going to protect them and all this kind of stuff. And now look at what's happening. Where do they turn? Other than asking him to be even more aggressive, so they don't have an Iran at the end of it that's empowered to come over and smack them upside the head. I don't think Iran would do that anyway. I think it's going to take years for Iran to recover from all this pummeling that we've given it. rebuild its schools, its hospitals, everything virtually. But that's, I think, their fear that post-U.S. presence and no other supplementing great power, Iran's going to take them. I don't think that's a fear that's justified. I really don't. So they're just trying to save themselves. That's all. And I go back to Powell telling me about Prince Bandar and about the royals in general and saying, Larry, don't worry, the Saudis will always go to the most potent power, taking their money with them. And when it comes to the end of the day for the Saudi royal family, when it becomes untenable for them to be around anymore, and the same applies to Jordan and to Egypt and other countries. Mubarak proved it in Egypt. They just didn't consolidate it well. They're gone. They're gone. And the implication on Powell's part was good riddance. He wasn't comfortable with that relationship either.
Here is what Pete Hegseth today said about regime change in Iran.
Because regime change has occurred, should be wiser than the last. President Trump will make a deal he is willing, and the terms of the deal are known to them. If Iran is not willing, then the United States War Department will continue with even more intensity.
Yeah, the regime change has happened, you know.
All you got to do is put a helmet on him, and he's Darth Vader. Just put a black helmet on him and have it go. That's the way Darth Vader breathed through that helmet, and he's Darth Vader. I mean, you can't make this crap up, Nima. We are the Empire, and everyone else out there is Princess Leia and Han Solo and the Millennium Falcon and justice and truth and the galactical way, the prime imperative, as Star Trek would put it. That's who we are. We're the people the world hates.
It's not just Pete Hegseth. Donald Trump is negotiating behind the scene with himself, it seems.
Oh, yeah.
That it's Iranian.
Talks to himself at night between nightmares. Yeah. And then they had, what did they do in Pakistan? They had the Egyptian foreign minister. They had the Pakistani foreign minister. Who else did they have? They had a couple of other people there, and they were supposedly talking about the war in Iran. Now, what the hell do you think they were talking about the war in Iran? They were talking about the United States and how dangerous we have become.
And just adding, you know, when you have, you know, the Treasury Secretary, you may expect some sort of sanity from Treasury Secretary because he has the numbers. And here is what he said about the Strait of Hormuz. Larry.
Is well supplied, and we are seeing more and more ships go through on a daily basis as individual countries cut deals with the Iranian regime for the time being. But over time, the U.S. is going to retake control of the straits, and there will be freedom of navigation, whether it is through U.S. escorts or a multinational escort.
Yeah.
So he just described the situation exactly the way it is. If Iran wants you to get through, you get through. If Iran doesn't want you to get through, you don't get through. Now, can they maintain that posture indefinitely? Probably not, but can they maintain a sense of danger significant enough to inhibit insurers and shippers from going back full bore? Yes, probably for the indefinite future they can do that. Unless these ground operations succeed in some spectacular way, which I do not expect at all. The spectacle will be American boys and girls dying. But otherwise, I think they can probably maintain this selective passage for some time. And he's talking out of the top of his head. We don't have the naval craft, the naval munitions, or the naval capacity to keep that strait open on a continuing basis against a still fairly well-armed Iran. We just don't. So he's pipe dreaming. He's pipe dreaming at least 6 months down the road. And at the end of those 6 months, who the hell knows what's going to happen, because Trump is plunging in the polls. MAGA is leading that plunge in the polls. And there's no way the Republicans are going to win the midterms unless they cheat colossally. And I can't believe the Democrats will let them get away with that. I just can't. Not again.
We know that Egypt is making, $800 million or $1 billion a month through this trade, the Suez Canal. I think Iran is preparing for such a thing, Larry, when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz. This reparation that they're talking about.
Yeah, they're already doing it.
Yeah.
As I understand it, they're already doing it. They're putting a permit cost on even their friends and people with, and that's probably. I mean, Ahmadinejad sort of suggested that in New York when we were talking, that they should. They have never thought about it, but they should, and maybe share it with others in the Gulf, Bahrain, UAE, whatever.
Oman gonna be part of it.
Oman,
not Bahrain.
That's the first one I'd pick too if I were Iran. A decent country with an eye towards peace all the time instead of war. They should. They should do that. And the law of the sea treaty would, amend the record with regard to that and charge, just like Egypt charges for progressing through the Suez Canal and Panama charges for going through the Panama Canal.
Yes. Whenever we talk about the war with Iran, I think we have in the background, we see the threat of using nuclear bombs, Larry.
Yeah.
I think the threat of, the possibility of the use of the nuclear bombs is still there. And as long as Israel is in a desperate situation, we know what is going on in Israel. The population is not happy, as we've seen in this report on Fox News. The population is suffering a lot because they're in the bunkers. And you see the casualties on the border with Lebanon, how Lebanon is somehow dominating, IDF. And you see the pressure from Iranian missiles. So if out of all these, measures, Israel decides to use nuclear weapons, what is your understanding of that scenario?
I understand it simply from a military perspective that, as I've said before, one or two wouldn't be sufficient to influence decisively the situation. So I would look at Israel targeting those facilities that it thinks it knows are productive of missile firings in whatever way, on rails, underground, whatever. And in whatever terrain, mountainous terrain in most cases. And that would be quite a few nuclear weapons, at least 50 probably. And so that's really not just letting the genie out of the bottle, that's asking for retaliation. And it's asking for retaliation from more than one power in the region even. Yesterday, we got some reports that S-500s were being delivered along with Russians to operate them. That would put F-35s, that'd put everything in jeopardy. 600-mile radar range, I think. See them coming from 600 miles away. You can pop an F-35, anything you want with that. I don't know that that's the case. We haven't been able to verify. The report was S-500s in quantity and Russian technicians to operation. So anytime you could introduce something into this conflict short of nuclear weapons that would be maybe not ultimately decisive, but it would certainly be tactically decisive at the moment and probably several moments after that. It caused us to have to readjust a lot of things. You wouldn't fly any B-52s over, for example, which Trump is threatening now. He's put B-52s apparently on alert to go over there and drop carpet bombs, and the other things. The B-52s can carry the Air-Launched Cruise Missile, I think it is, the ACLM, and other things like that. So they don't have to necessarily overfly Iranian territory. And then you've got, is it Lincoln? I think Lincoln's still sitting off 1,000 kilometers or so in the Arabian Sea. And they haven't tried anything yet, because at that distance, you do the math on it, at that distance, even a fairly significantly fast, and well, more than fairly significant, a very fast missile with a carpet bombing type warhead on it, it has trouble with the flank speed of a carrier. Full up is over 33 knots. That's really fast for a big platform like that. So you can get out of the way of the missile, as it were. It can't target you that fast in its terminal phase if you're going that fast and you're maneuvering too. That's how they lost the plane in the Red Sea, for example. Their arc of turn was too sharp and the plane fell off. Well, they battened down the hatches, or they just wouldn't do anything, just trying to evade the missile. So you wouldn't want to, waste a couple of those missiles knowing they were going to miss at that extended range. You come in any closer, and that gets a lot easier. It's a lot easier for the missile to hit you and for you to get up flank speed and get away from it. So this has got lots of dimensions to it that haven't been explored yet. One of which is a good lucky hit on an aircraft carrier, and 5,000 Americans dead in one fell swoop. There are so many things that could happen to complicate this war. What would the American people's support be if a main battle cruiser like that, capital ship, we used to call them, an aircraft carrier in this case, went down with 5,000 men and women dead? Would the American people's view change? Because they don't support this war now, not in majority. They don't support this war. Would they shift and suddenly support it because of those deaths? I don't know. The American people can be very fickle sometimes. So I don't know. I don't think they would. I think they would make their non-support even more profound if that were to happen. They'd start wagging their fingers and saying, see, we told you shouldn't be doing this. You've just killed 5,000 men and women. I don't know. There's so many different things in war that, as Clausewitz points out repeatedly, you just don't know when something's going to change the dynamics. Powell used to call it the CNN effect. You know what he meant by that? A single soldier or Marine on the battlefield filmed by CNN doing something might change the whole prospect of the war. Think about Mogadishu, 93, was it? When that warrant officer was dragged through the street, burned and wounded badly and dead, ultimately pulled from the helicopter, Black Hawk Down, and how that changed Americans' views of that conflict. And Clinton got out faster than greased lightning. He gave the commander an order to withdraw under pressure and do it tomorrow. And so that's the CNN effect. You don't know about that. The camera catches that single little tactical episode, and all of a sudden the people's support for that war goes away. So you never know when something like that's going to happen. For example, Carg Island, ospreys burning, Marines dying, paratroopers in the air with their parachutes aflame. Those kind of scenes, that'll get the American people on President Trump's back like shit on a stick. So you never know when something like that's going to happen and change the whole complexion of the war, for one side at least.
I think for the case of Donald Trump, you have to say Fox effect, not CNN effect.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're right. You're right. The Fox effect. Yeah. Maybe Fox is the only one with enough guts to go over there.
Yeah.
Did you see my article on the front page of the Washington Post? Or,
no, I haven't seen.
It wasn't my article. It was Michelle Borstein, the religious reporter for the Washington Post, quoting me in the article. She called me an admiral. Admiral Wilkerson. Thanks for the promotion. But that article was the first article talking about Hegseth and his prayer meetings at the Pentagon, and talking about how Trump is tolerating that, how unconstitutional that is. You know, it was the first article. It was above the fold, left side, front page of the Washington Post. That's the first time we've been able to get anything in the mainstream media.
It's just amazing together, because they don't like, the people who are criticizing.
We're traitors. We're traitors. We're traitors, just like Bobby Lee was a traitor. Only Bobby Lee was really a traitor.
Yeah. The only body in this system, the only one who's not traitor in this system is Lindsey Graham, who's just
Yeah, he's straightforward, isn't he?
the guy is.
Yeah,
just
I'm
amazing.
being told by people in my home state right now that not only is, I think she's a pediatrician, the woman who's running against him as a Democrat, not only is she gaining ground, but also the guy in the primary that is running against Lindsey Graham in the Republican primary is worse than Graham, but he's tolerable. So they think there's a chance that he might unseat Graham in the primary before he even gets to the election. He's MAGA through and through, but he's a little, he's not a weird dude like Lindsey is.
Lindsey is just hybrid guy, It's just Democrat, Republican. He doesn't matter for
It doesn't
Lindsey.
matter. He reminds me of John
He's
Tower.
just establishment. He's the establishment. I think part of the establishment.
He's strange character, really. He is. He could only be from South Carolina. This is the state that fired on Fort Sumter. This is the state that the consul general reported back to the British, you don't want to ally with these people, from Charleston. I mean, that's what he was saying to the prime minister and the foreign minister of Great Britain. He was saying, you don't want an alliance with these people. They're horrible people.
Thank you, Larry. And we're gonna talk again on Friday. Let's see what would happen. And it seems that if they want to invade, if they want to go underground, it's gonna be on Friday if it happens.
I think that's what Larry thinks. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see.
We'll see. In the meantime, have some poo-poos.
Yeah.
What do you call poo-poo? What do you call poo-poos?
I really hope they don't do that because it's just. We know. I'm sure about the outcome. The outcome is not good. You're killing people. Why? Why are you doing this? That's have nothing to do with Donald Trump.
That's the fundamental question. Why are we doing this? Why are we attacking mercilessly a country who presents no viable threat to the United States of America? Why are we doing that? And the answer that it's Israel has a grain of truth to it, but I don't think it's the full answer. It's not the full answer. Maybe the full answer, as the Speaker of the Majlis and the Foreign Minister suggested, is that we're just plain evil.
Yeah. Thank you, Larry. And see you soon.
Take care. See you Friday.
Take care.
If I'm still alive.
Sure, we're gonna talk again.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.